seen the pictures already. Oh, that's not very much in the camera, is it? Let's bring it back into the situation. I think the camera may have wiggled a bit. There we go. Oh, I've probably hit it with my head or something early on, but this is the card that we're going to be creating. Oh, I can hear myself. I'll have to go and alter that. Oh, that was my troublesome M. This is one that I had to recut. There we go. And I didn't take the backing off, so it's not going to stick, is it? That was literally up until the wire earlier on. So let me just take that off because it'll irritate me if I don't get that in the right place. So let's pop that down. Whoops. The cold and self-adhesive doesn't go together. So there we go. Okay. So everything on this project has been created using the basic software and also using the basic tools that are in there, including the pop-up feature. So everything from the vase to the flowers, utilising the fonts that we've got within the software, all come together in this little project. So that's what we're going to be creating, and we're going to be doing it in the software. I'm just going to turn my phone down because I think it's my phone I can hear talking to me. So let me just mute that. There we go. I think that's better. Okay, so that's the project that we're going to be creating, and yeah, we're going to do it on the software. So let me just come back and have a little chat with you just while I... Oh, this is talking. It's getting on my nerves. Oh, now somebody's saying they can't hear me. Is that everybody can't hear me? Actually, I can hear myself on my phone, so let me just turn that up again to see whether I can hear myself again. Hello, Bridget. Oh, gosh, yes. Yes, I can hear myself. Right, so, yeah, you'll just have to let me know. Hello, Bridget and Sue and Jean and Bev. Oh, there's lots of you joining us. Good to have your company. Right, so, oh, I have to turn my phone around that way because I can't see the comments otherwise. So, yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, as I was saying, that is the project that we're going to be making. So, we better get on and show you exactly how to do that. So, we're going to head over to the computer. So, with a bit of luck, she says, pressing the pedal. Was it that one? It's that one. There we go. So, the software. I'm working with just the basic edition of the software. So you don't need anything fancy. You don't need a different version, the designer edition or anything like that. And that's going to be the front of our card. So we'll come to that in a few moments. But we're going to create the inside of the card. So the inside is where we've got the pop out. And as you can see, we've got the vase that's been created. So I'm just going to move some of these elements out of the way. So we've got them close to hand, but I'm going to show you how it all comes together. So, first thing that we need to do is make our vase. So, how do we make the vase? Well, it's relatively easy, to be honest. What we're looking at here is creating a vase like this. Now, this has been created using the oval and the rounded square tool, which you'll find over here. Hello, who was that who said hello then? Oh, Pauline. Hello, Pauline. So, first thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be, where am I? What am I going to do? I'm going to be making the oval shape, so kind of like the belly of the vase to start with. So I'm going to draw out an oval to start with. And then what I'm going to do with this is create a shape, and I'm going to make it, what size did I say it was going to be earlier on? What did I write it down? About 6 centimetres by 10 centimetres, although it depends on the size of the base of the card that you're creating, but at this point it doesn't really matter. And then of course you know that you can kind of alter the dimensions up at the top here. So let's say it's about 6 centimetres wide and about 10 centimetres high. So little oval shape like so. Now incidentally, with regards to this, you will be able to go back and watch this because it's on Facebook all the time, so if you want to work along you can do. So we've got our vase, so it's roughly the same size as the one that I've got there, and what I'm going to do is flatten off the bottom. So I'm going to use one of the tools which is called the knife tool, and there's two different versions of the knife. You've got the the solid and the outline. Now when you hover over these, it will actually tell you exactly what each tool does. But basically the solid will make whatever you create, even though you cut it into a solid shape, whereas the outline will basically just cut it so it could be open-ended. So holding down the shift key, the knife will only work if you cut completely through your design from one side to the next. So let me just move, oh, where's my mouse gone? So I'm just going to literally hold down the shift and then draw it across. Should be able to see that happen. It doesn't matter what size we do that, because when I release it, what will happen is I will get two pieces. So there you go. And that's kind of sliced off the bottom of our vase, as you can see there. A couple of ways you could actually make the top of your vase. You might want to use the bit that you've cut off and then basically elongate it if you're wanting to. So it depends on what kind of shape of vase you're wanting to create. What I actually did was I used, and that's quite nice because it kind of gives you this inny bit that you've got here. What I actually did though was I bought in one of the rounded rectangles, and I drew a rounded rectangle. Can't remember what dimensions I did, but something along those lines like so. And then what I did was basically bring in some of the points to kind of give it the neck, which pretty much went double click, or should I say click on the nodes, and this will allow you to actually change the shape of this. Sorry, you have to make it into oops, where am I? You have to make it into a compound shape to start with. Where is my compound shape? There you go. Make a compound path. So that means that when I actually click on it, I'll be able to use the nodes that are bringing it together. So it depends what sort of shape you're wanting to create, really. And then all you do with the nodes, they will allow you to kind of manipulate those and kind of bring them in to whatever point you want them to come in at. So something along the lines of that, I think. And you can see how that outside edge kind of creates a vase. Now, if you want it to be very, very symmetrical, then you can line up your pieces using your align tools. Wasn't far off, to be fair. But of course, at the moment, when this cuts out, it's going to cut out where all of the lines are. So we need to make it so it's just one outside line. And the way you do that is you select all and you right click or choose the keyboard shortcut for weld. And that will create pretty much your vase shape. So far so good. Get rid of that bit that we don't need at the bottom there. So yeah, got that piece now. I've actually, just so as you can see and imagine it being cut out of decorative paper there, I've just kind of added a fill, but that doesn't really come into it. The one that I've done, I've just done out of a purple style cardstock, so it doesn't really matter. Now, I'm going to change the size of our paper that we're working with. Let's make it a 12 by 12, just to fill in that area that we've got there. Okay, so I'm going to move the vase out the way. What I would do at this stage, though, is I would duplicate this. The reason being is I'm going to have one that I'm going to use in my pop-out, which will be on the inside of my card, and one that's going to be on the outside of the card. So if I show you that on the card itself, let me just do it on the overhead because it's a bit easier for me to show you with that. So the inner one, the spotty one, will be the equivalent of that light area, whereas underneath, I don't know whether you'll be able to see, probably just about, you've actually got the pop out, which has got the vase attached to it as well. So that's a bit that we're going to be working on. But what we're going to create is this whole dark purple panel, which will sit inside an outer card that is created, and then that little pop-up will be there in there as well. So going back to the computer, so you duplicate that because you're going to need a second one that you're going to cut out. So I'm just going to move that one. It doesn't matter which one I move, just move one to the side, and I'm just going to move that out the way because we don't need that one. So this is the one that we're going to use to create our pop-out. But in order for me to create the pop-out, I need to make my card first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut or create a rectangle. And I can draw my rectangle to whatever size. I particularly chose a 6-inch, well, it was 5.5 inches by 11 inches to fit within a 6x6 card envelope. So if you press down Command and K, or go down to the bottom right hand side, you can go into your preferences, and this will allow you to change between your centimetres and your inches. So because my card bases tend to be in inches, I'm going to change that to inches, and then click on OK, and then when I click off and click back onto the shape, you can see it's inches, and that means at the top here I can change it to 5.5 inches by, and double that would be 11 inches. So it's basically double the length, so as it will end up square, if that makes sense. So, excuse me, that's going to be my card base to start with. And that will be my outer card. So I just need to make another one of those to create my inner card. So I'm just going to move, whoops, should have two there, yes I have. So just move one of those out of the way, put it over there out the side for now. And this is going to be my inner card. Now you may have noticed these kind of little blue lines that keep appearing when I'm moving elements around, and these are smart snapping, and this means that when they appear they kind of help you line up things, so whether things are on the work area or not, depends on which settings you've gone for, and the settings are actually found under the page setup where you've got smart snapping. So if I just do smart snapping within the media, it basically will mean that when I move these round, so that is now saying that that bottom line, that bottom blue line, is in the centre of the length, things like that. So it's, yeah, kind of just, they just help you with lining up and things. Sometimes they can be irritating, but I don't tend to notice them so much now, so it's not too bad. Right, so going back to our card base. Now, the inside needs to be just a smidgen, just a tiny bit smaller than the outside, because of the way the card folds. There'll be a bit of an overlap if we're not careful. So I'm just going to change it to, let's just take it, it only needs to be like 1/4 of an inch. So let's take it off the width there. So rather than it being 5.5, let's make it 5 1/4. And because I've closed the padlock at the top there, it will do everything at the same time. So it'll be in proportion. So press OK. There you go. So you can see it's made it slightly shorter, and it's made it slightly narrower. So that means that when I actually bring the other card in, when I come to do it, it'll sit just inside. Because of the kind of angle of it, what you can do if you want to, or should I say the proportions of it, whoops, double click there, you can actually open up the padlock and kind of move it by eye if you wanted to, because it might not necessarily be the exact the way that it's done. So just kind of make sure you've got the right gap. What I sometimes do is have them both at the same side and then just trim it off when I actually come to cut, because cardstock can bend at a different rate, which you potentially come across yourself anyway. Oh, just make sure I'm moving the right one out of the way. So it's the outside one. That is the outside one, yeah, out of the way. So yeah, just be aware of that. So yeah, lots of you joining, some dipping in, some dipping out, and that's okay. But if there's any questions that you want to ask, then do shout out. I've got you up on my phone so I can have a little look if there's anything you need to ask. So next thing is we're going to create this inner part, which is the pop-up. So let me just move all this over to one side. So that's what we're working on at the moment. This, oh, I didn't group it together. That wasn't very good, was it? So this over here is kind of the card that we're going to be creating. So I need it to be, I think that's about, well, yeah, it's about the halfway point anyway. So this is what we're going to create in effect. So let me just move that out of the way. And the way we do that is we use a tool which is from the pop-up menu, which is one of the ones that we've got down the side. Now I've just noticed my software is actually opened in the business edition. So let me just change that to the standard edition, because if you've only got the basic edition, you won't have all of those tools down the side. Everything I've used so far you would have. So this little one that you've got here with the little pop-up heart, that is the pop-up panel. So I'm going to click on there, And then what I'm actually going to do is, as you can see, when you haven't got anything selected, nothing is available to work with on the pop-up menu here. So as soon as you click on something, it knows that something has been selected, and then it will give you the option to add your pop-up feature on, if that makes sense. So when you click on that, it will give you some options. Now, as you look at the design, if I zoom in a little bit, where am I? Oops, zoom in. Okay, you'll notice that we've got our vase shape. It's not very even, but not to worry. And you'll notice that we've got some dotted lines. So there's a few dotted lines around, and there's some cut lines. Now the solid lines are your cut lines. The dotted lines are still cut lines, but they're broken cut lines. So there will be like a dotted effect. Now there's a few features that you can actually change when you are working with your pop-ups. And this comes to you over time with regards to experience. And we've got all the features that are over on the right-hand side. So first of all, you need to select your shape. So once it's been selected, you can alter these different things that you've got over here. Now, the first thing is the base width. Now, the base width relates to the bottom of your pop-up shape. And you can basically create a connector. So this will connect with your outer card. And it's done as a percentage. So as I alter this, you'll be able to see that just underneath, in fact, let's zoom in. Okay, so as I alter this, you'll see that it's kind of making it a cut line, or it's making it a dotted line. So basically, I would put, I'm saying a lot of basicallys. What I would want to do is alter that so as it's pretty much the full width of the design. Now I don't want it 100%, which you might think, oh, that would make sense, it being 100%, because it's going to take it to the most out point. So if I actually change that to 100%, you'll see that the dotted line will go right the way to the outside line of your design. And I don't want that to happen. I just want it to come to the inside that we've got there. So about like so. And then if I fit it to screen, you'll be able to see exactly where that dotted line is. Okay, so it's going across there. Now also you've got these little kind of struts that are on the shoulders, and this is determined by this one that says here, strut width. And again, as you watch the design, so let me just zoom in a little bit more so as you can see. So again, as you move the strut width, they will change. So it's set up as inches at the moment, because obviously the design is in inches, but you can see as you increase that little by little, it will add extra struts in, it or take struts out. Now if we go back to the card that I've created, just to show you, on the shoulders of the vase, I haven't put any struts at all. So it depends on the project that you're working with. You'll have an idea of the design. And I could have had it so there were some little struts there to support it. But because this is quite a solid piece, I don't really need to. Might be if you're doing things like letters or something that's not quite as structured as this, that you'll want those in. But basically, it's the struts on the software that will allow you to do that. So on this occasion, I'm going to basically take them so as big as possible. And that means that they will disappear because of the nature of the design. So let's just zoom out a little bit, and you'll notice it's on the shoulders that those kind of struts appear. They will also appear at the top as well, so you kind of got to get the right balance between the two, really. So if I open that up, they'll disappear on the outside, but you can see that we've got a nice strut appearing at the top there. So again, you just kind of alter it to what you need it to be, and that will be within the settings when you're playing around with it. So if I take it to about that point, and you can use the upwards arrows and things like that to really fine tune it. I just want it to be just on the neck of the vase. So you can kind of play around with those to get it to where you need it to be. So sometimes it's quite difficult to do it with the mouse and the slider. So that's why sometimes the arrows are good. So I'm happy with that, the way that is at the moment. So now it's telling me that I've got a dotted line that's going to attach it to the main card. I've got a dotted line here, so it won't cut through that whole vase, where there's a dotted line, it basically overrides the cut line. So that will happen like so, and then yeah, it will create cut lines where there aren't dotted lines. So basically it will cut these curved lines, and then it will go up to the neck there. It will do a dotted line across the neck, and then a solid cut line right the way around into the base. And it also do a dotted line across the top there. So you've got two dotted lines and a dotted line at the bottom. So again, if I go back over to the card, you'll see that you've got a dotted line there, which will be your score line there. You've got a dotted line there, which will be your score line there, and a dotted line just in the inside there, which will be your score line as well. So that's how they all kind of come together. So happy with that. But at the moment, we need to attach it to our main card. So I can wiggle this around. I can also change the depth of that kind of bracket that we've got there. If I want it to be kind of sticking out a bit more from the card, then I can kind of move it further out if I'm wanting to. So yeah, you can kind of play around with that to your heart's content. So I need the two pieces. So I'm going to lined up central vertically. So I'm going to select all, and then I'm going to use the lining up tool to keep one so as it sits in the middle. Oh, okay. I don't want to select all because that will incorporate everything out there. Forgot about those bits. So I'm just going to select what's in my work area and line those up. So they're basically sitting as pretty central, which they are. So on the sides, let's zoom in so you can see them. On the sides of the vase, you've got these little dots. And if you click on the dots, they will drag out, and you need them to drag out to the outside of your card. Okay, and the same on the other side. You can drag that one out. Let me zoom out a little bit and drag that one out. Now, you don't have to worry about holding a shift key or anything like that. When you drag it out, it will just drag in a straight line. Okay, so now you can see we've got the dotted line. So you can imagine that's going to be the inside fold of your card. The vase is going to pop out, and away you go. Now, one thing you might find is, and this is one thing you need to be conscious of, the fact that that fold line there really needs to be the halfway point from your card, the top and the bottom. So this is where you need to figure out where that needs to sit, because if you take the two and you line them horizontally, it won't necessarily take it to the halfway point, because it's basically finding the center of your design and putting that in the middle of your card. So that is pretty much the middle of your card, but we need it to be that dotted line. So the way that I do this, and I don't know if it's supposed to figure this out for yourself or not, I don't know, but obviously you can eyeball it, and when you drag it up, you can see how obviously it's lining up with the side there. You've got your elements on the side, but it's still finding the center of the card. So I can't find the center of the vase. So those blue lines aren't helping line those dotted lines up with the center. So the only way that I figured out that I could do this is to basically draw another box or a rectangle or something, almost using this as a measuring guide, and to make this half of the size of the length. So like so. So you can see it's 10.7, because it's as close as that is really there. So I just need to change that. So rather than 10.7, I need it to be half of that, which would be, what, 5.35, you reckon? 5.35. So that's pretty much the halfway point. So what that means is that if I put that and line it up with the bottom edge, and when I click on that, it did actually show me that was lined up with the centre of the outside of the card. Now I know that I can move that up, and if I line it up with the top, that is the halfway point now of the card. So that's kind of like my measuring guide, and that is the halfway point. So I don't need that anymore, so I can get rid of that. and that will be the inside of our pop out. So does it make sense so far? That is the question. I'm going to bring my phone with me as I go back over to the demo area, because I've cut out some of the pieces, so I'll show you what I've cut out so far. And this is relating to that purple part. So as I've mentioned, you've got the dotted line. I've got some glue on there. So you've got the dotted line that's going across. So that would be our score line to fold the pop-up inside, like so. And then we've got our dotted lines there and our dotted line there. So that, oh, there's my missing letters. They're the ones that disappeared. So now that is, I'll press it down. That will be the inside of our card to create that pop-up bit that we've got on this inside there. Oh, I do apologise. Sorry about that. So as easy as that. I mean, it's really easy to do. You can do it with letters and all sorts, but keeping it simple is the key thing to start with. So that's why I've just done that little vase like so. Now, when I actually take the piece that I kind of created to start with and cut a separate one out, I did that out of a little bit of lilac card. Excuse me. So that will sit on there perfectly when we come to do it. And then you can see how the card starts coming together. But before I put that in place, I need to put my little flowers in place. So we're going to create some flowers, and we're also going to create these little stalks that you can see here to make the decoration on the inside, and then we'll go on and do the lettering afterwards. So I'll keep that to one side. Now I don't want to glue that in place yet because I need to put the flowers behind it. So I'm going to keep that to one side for the moment, but we're going to concentrate on those flowers. And the flowers are made up of this kind of like star-shaped flower, and then you've got a little hole in there. But that isn't a design I've bought. It's not a design that I've had out of the library. It's one that I've made up from nothing, basically. So I'm going to show you how to do that next. So let's go back over to the computer. Excuse me, and I'll grab myself a little drink. Got a bit of a tickle. So yes, really useful, Bridget. It's a really useful little tool, and you can create some really fancy cards with it. So some nice effects. So I'm going to take that away just for the time being. In fact, I'll move it down. I won't delete it completely because it might be a case that we might need it later on. So let's just group it all together. So I'm just going to select everything there and then group it, and then that makes it one piece now. So I can just move that out of the way. Not planning on coming back to it, but it's useful to have it there just in case I do. So flowers. Let's create some flowers. So the flower that we've got, let me just bring this one in. And this has been created again from scratch. And it's really easy to do, to be honest. So yeah, it's worth having a little play. And we're going to use another one of the inbuilt shapes, and this is the ellipse. And I'm going to draw an ellipse, and the ellipse is going to be, basically it's like an oval shape. So I'm going to bring it in like so. Okay, and you can play around the size of these as time goes on. And what you need to do is create multiples of these petals. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. So you can kind of make your oval, and you can imagine that kind of being that oval shape that we've got there, go north and south. So once I've got that selected, I can go over to this replicate panel. And the replicate panel will allow me to create a copy and rotate it. So you can use any one of these, to be honest, depends how many petals you want. I tend to use the last one, which is rotate 5 copies. So you click on there and it will rotate and it will create your flowers. Actually, I think I'm telling a fib. I think it's the one previous to that I do. Yeah, that's the one. So that has created a flower. But again, those cut lines, those red lines will cut and basically make it into a jigsaw. So again, I'm going to draw a box around it. I'm going to select it all. I'm going to right click and weld. And that will make our outer shape. But I quite like these pointed shape petals. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So that's one version. That's the simplest shape to do. But let's bring in another ellipse. And again, this can be as narrow or as wide as you want it to be. Obviously, the narrower this is, as you can see there, the more pointy, you're going to get those petals there, but they need to have points on the ends because at the moment they're quite rounded, those ends. We need them to be a little bit pointier than that. So I'm going to open it up a little bit, probably to about so. And then what I'm going to do, you can either double click it or you can select it and click on your nodes. And your nodes, basically any shape that you've got in your work area, we're made up of nodes, and it's basically like a dot to dot, and they're connected with these red lines. Now, sometimes it's quite angular, as we saw earlier on, but sometimes you've got a rounded shape. And what you can actually do is kind of bend and twist that. It gives you the opportunity, the ability to manipulate it. But let's get in a little closer so we can have a little look to see what's happening with this one. So when you click on something that's on a curve, you will have these little handles appear. So a couple of little ways that you can play around with these. You can either bring them in like so, and that will kind of shape it in or drag it out, or you can kind of wiggle them around like so. So they will manipulate the shape, but they'll keep it as a kind of a flowing shape. It's not angular like a corner or a point in that respect. So all I'm going to do on this occasion is just drag them in a little bit to give them more of a pointed look. So again, just drag that one in, and you can see how it's got more of a pointed look to the other end. And then I'm just going to do exactly the same with the other end. Find the handles, and the handles are there just when you click on it. Just drag them in. It's not going to be a particular measurement as such, just a rough measurement. And it might be that I look at that and think, oh, actually that's still quite wide, so I can bring that in a little bit, make it a little bit narrow if I'm wanting to. So it's entirely up to you, and you can make a whole host of different styles of flowers just with this technique in its own right. So let's get this one, and we're going to use the the replicator again. And again, we use the same one as before, rotate 3 copies, but I need to select it first so it knows what to rotate. So give it a quick twist, and there you go. It's created a different style flower again. So again, select it all, right click and weld. So you can see you can create quite a few different styles, and when you actually weld it, it can look quite different. I mean, that looks much more like a star now, doesn't it, than previously, but it just depends on the way that you kind of do those petals to start with. And then sometimes you might kind of line them up, or you might rotate them and make multi-layered flowers and things like that. So there's loads of ways you can play around with those as time goes on. So that's pretty much how I created my flower to start with. So let's get rid of those, we don't need those, and the flower needed a centre. So again, use the ellipse tool, and to create a perfect circle, all you need to do is hold down the shift key and drag out that ellipse tool. So just make sure you've got it selected, hold down the shift key, drag it out, and then I don't do it by a specific measurement, I just kind of eyeball it. So you can see there you've got roughly the right size. So now I've got the centre of my flowers and I've got my flower itself. But we need to create a stalk, and again, the stalk has been done using shapes. As easy as that. Right, oh, I better keep forgetting to check questions. Oh, Faith, I needed reminding about this. There's so much in there. I mean, there's so many different things, and hopefully we'll cover some of these over the kind of months with the different projects. So, yes, the stalk. So the stalk. Again, we're going to start with a rectangle, because you can see you've got a tall, thin rectangle. Mine quite thin, actually, so just be mindful that they can be quite delicate if you're not careful. But anyway, we'll make it about so thick. So that's going to be our main stalk, and we're going to need some leaves. So guess how we do that? With the ellipse tool. So there you go. Create your leaves, like so. And then use the little circle at the top there just to twist them round. And then just position them on your stalk. So again, to duplicate something, you can either select it and then click on what looks like the 2 dice at the top, the duplicate. Or you can right click it and you've got duplicate. Or one of my favourites is the keyboard shortcuts, which is Command D. Because I'm working with a Mac. I think it is Alt Is it an Alt on Windows? Not too sure. And then basically you can just rotate that round and bring it in like so. So position them roughly where you want them to be. Now again, you've got those division cuts there because you've got multiple shapes all coming together. So again, we need to make sure that they disappear, and the outer parameter is the one that will be the cut line. So you select everything, you right click, whoops, or I think you do Command W. No, that's not right. I can't remember what it is for the weld, but yeah, right click and weld. So now you can see how I've kind of got my stalk shape. So you can have a little play around with your shapes just to make sure that they're roughly as you want them to be. So you can see there, I've got that. So yeah, roughly the right size. Now I need to make sure that they're going to fit the right size with regards to my card. Now this is where it can be a little bit tricky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ruler and show you. So at least we've got our components for our card to start with, so that's the main thing. So we've got our stalk, we've got our leaves. I'll move that one out of the way so we've got the nice coloured in ones. So if you head over to the demo area, and I'll try and explain. Don't always get the right words, but hopefully I will try and explain. Now when you look at where the position of the flowers are at the moment, they're probably sitting, where am I? Let's have a look, about 3 centimetres down from the top of the card. But when the card is folded, you will see that they actually move further up the card. So at this point, they are only, what, 1/2 centimetre, something like that. So this is where, when we come to stick it together, we've got to be careful that we don't kind of push the flowers so as that when we close the card, they're poking out the top. So just be mindful of the size of the flowers. Now, to be honest, when you're looking at your vase, you're not going to want big flowers like this anyway. You're going to want something on a smaller scale. So you might have to do a couple of little trials just to make sure you've got the right sort of sizes of flowers. But I kind of looked at that and thought to myself, oh, about 2.5 centimetres across, 3 centimetres across will be big enough. I knew that I just wanted a little set of 3. So I kind of worked it towards that. And then I've got my little flowers and I kind of sized them and kind of eyeballed them on the screen, made them up on the screen to make sure that they're the right sort of shape. So I've got those cut out here. So I've got series that I've kind of cut out. Some of the larger ones, some are smaller ones. So I'm going to take 3 of the smaller ones. So 1, 2, 3. Again, I did different sizes of middles and they're kind of all a bit, they all got a bit jumbled up, to be honest. But it doesn't really matter. So just a little selection of colours, really. It's up to you what colours you go for. So let's go for, what we've got. There we go, we'll go for a blue, a red, and let's have a little look, what should we go for? Oh, that hasn't got middle on it. Pink, there you go, go for a pink. I was a bit heavy-handed with my glue as well, so yeah, just be careful with your glue. Let's just move those out of the way because we'll come to use those in a second. Also need my stalks. Now this is where my little stalks were cut out. 1, 2, 3. There's my 3rd one. So there's my little stalks. And then I'm just going to kind of stick them together and make sure that they're kind of secure before we start constructing the card. Now, if you wanted to, you could actually cut a piece of card to make almost like a wallpaper at the back there. But to be honest, I didn't want to do that in this sitting because I thought, well, it's probably giving you enough to think about as it is. Sorry, my phone's in the way there. So, yeah, I didn't want to kind of over egg the pudding or whatever the phrase is. So, just a little bit of glue. Put your little flowers on like so. Just put that way up so as it doesn't stick to my table. Again, a little bit of glue maybe on the back. Little stalk. Whoops. Can kind of poke the stalk so it's coming out the front of the flower as well. And just make them kind of roughly the same sort of size. Whoops. wasn't quite dry. Push that over and let that dry. There we go. Put it face down again so that it doesn't stick to the table. And again, you might want to mix up which way the leaves are going and things like that. That's just personal preference. So just make sure that you want the glue to be relatively dry when you come to the next point, because otherwise you'll end up sticking everything to everything. So we're going to put the vase in place. And again, this could be cut out of a pretty paper if you wanted to. I've just done it out of a plain cardstock because, again, keeping it simple. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the flowers on the vase, or between the two vases, should I say, the base and the vase that we're decorating. But again, you've just got to be careful, and this is where you kind of have to jiggle it a bit. You could, if you have got something like, I don't know, paperclip or something like that, you could use that just to position it so as that when it actually goes in place, you can kind of figure out whether the flowers are going to poke out the top. So what I tend to do is kind of don't stick that down, but maybe hold those, close it up, and then kind of figure out if they're going to be sticking out. So you only really need to position one as such, and it might take a little bit of jiggling, but yeah, I know that one there, if I pinch it and hold it there, I know that's roughly in the right position for not poking out the top. So again, just take that and then pop that one in place and use that one almost as your kind of your guide for the others, really. So just pop that in there like so. Keep that in place. So a little bit of glue just to keep that in place. So that one I know is roughly at the right height, quite upright actually. So let's take it a little bit off to the side. There we go. One in the middle you might want a bit more upright. Really matter which way around they go. But pop that one in the middle, and again just kind of keep that arc of flowers going so as none of them stick out too far above the others. Give it a little press, and then a little bit more glue, and then pop that one down there like so. Don't know why I'm saying it like I'm singing, but there you go. Okay, and then kind of get them sitting. And obviously it depends on the glue that you've got. I've got quite a grabby glue, so yeah, I haven't got a lot of wiggle room with regards to those, but whoops, that will then stick on top like so, and they're pretty much in place. So again, a little bit of glue on your vase or on your base, whichever way you want to do it. Don't go over the dotted lines. Put my lid back on there before it dries up. And then I'm just going to position that on there. So the cut line is going to line up just on the inside of the dotted line, like so. And then again, just line it up. Just give it a moment to make contact and grab, like so. And there you go. Oops. You can see how now, when I close that, they're not poking out the top. And then I've got my outside card here. So all I would do is stick the one inside of the other, like so. And I haven't made this one much. I kind of made them both the same size, but then you can kind of trim it down if you wanted to, because sometimes when you glue the two together, what you can find, whoops, is that when you close it, you might have a little bit sticking out on the end, which you can trim with a guillotine if you're wanting to, or it depends how fussy you are about it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the inside and stick that to the outside, and obviously be mindful of where you're putting your glue. You don't want to put it on any of this area here, so just around the edge. Could be double-sided tape that you're using if you're wanting to. Down there, just kind of draw around where the vase is and kind of around like so. Whoops, put my pin back in. It's harder and harder to do, putting that pin back in. There we go. And then all I'm going to do is pop that on the inside of my card. And obviously line up the dotted line that you've got with your crease, the side parts, and then just give it a good rub. It's not too bad. A little tiny bit sticking out there, so I might take that to my guillotine and just trim that off if you're being very, very pernickety about it. But there you go. So that is the basics of the card to start with, like so. Okay, so now we need to look at the words. So which should we start with? Should we start with the insides? Okay, so this is where you need to be mindful of the area that you're working with, because as you can see with mine, I didn't really pay a lot of attention. I made it came quite tight to the edge. So I'm going to take my card with me and look at that. So I'm going to say, right, don't want it to be any bigger than 13 centimetres in across. And that is all of the layers. So on this one, I've got the inner layer, which is my font, which is in the glittery pink. Then I've got the purple, which is an offset layer, and then the silver again, which is an offset. So let's go and have a little look to see how we do that over on the computer, which I'm sure many of you will know how to do anyway, but just in case you don't, we will cover that. So what's everybody saying? Bridget, just need more time to play with my Cameo again. I know, I wish time was something that I could bottle up and send to you, Bridget. I really do. But yeah, sadly, it's not. But yeah, seem to get less and less time, don't we? Anyway, right. So now you could, if you've got your outer parameter card still available, you could bring that in just to kind of give you that guide. But as I said, we measured it and we knew it needs to be kind of 13 centimetres maximum across anyway, don't we? So we don't need to worry too much about that. So what you need to do is choose a font that you're going to work with. So I would choose something that's not too thin. It needs to be relatively substantial. Yeah, give it a bit of oomph to it. Obviously, when you're adding things like your offset layers, then it does get chunkier as time goes on. I can't remember what font I used. What font did I use on that? I don't know. It hasn't come up. I thought it might come up at the top there. No, not coming up with it. It's because I did this a little while ago. So, yeah, it depends on. Let's get it back to centimetres, actually. Come on, K. Come on, K. Let's get back to centimetres because that's what I measured it in. So, I don't think that's the actual font that I used anyway, but not to worry. So basically, actually, let's do typing the fonts just in case you've got people who've never worked with the fonts before. So down the left hand side, sorry, I'm talking to myself again. Down the left hand side, you've got this letter A, and that relates to the fonts that you've got on your computer. Now, your fonts may well look different to the ones that I've got, because over time you will kind of add to your fonts. You might download fonts. It might be a case of that to start with, you had a different package of fonts to start with. So it just varies. So as soon as you've got your cursor back in the work area and you click, you can start typing your words. So so I would pick you. Okay. To remember a font, Hayley, I add the name to the notepad. That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea, Faith. I never thought about that. Faith is talking, I think what Faith is talking about, the little notepads that you've got over here, so your little note. So what you can do is you can actually write yourself a little sticky note. So you could put in there, so the font, or anything that you want to put really. So on this occasion, what did I use? I used Aileron Black, so font, Aileron Black. That's a really good tip, because when you're actually working with your fonts, they're not always what we call active fonts. When you've got the green box around them, they become an active font. But I must admit, I thought that when you actually clicked on the font and tried to add extra letters, it told you what font it was, but it doesn't appear to, does it? Okay. Learn something new every day. So anyway, so I've chosen I would pick you, and at the moment, lining up wise, it's just over to the left hand side, and I've got 2 rows. So if I click on the justify to the center, it will basically line everything up, so you can see it's all lined up there. At the moment it's measuring just over 10 centimetres, but we can kind of play around with that in a little while anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. I'm going to add a fill to this just so as we can kind of keep an eye on the layers, because when they're just the outline, you can't always see them as you're working with them. So I'm going to just give that a, let's give it a pink fill. Okay, so I would pick you. Oh, I forgot my exclamation mark at the end of it. So there we go, I would pick you. So now these are individual letters. So when I cut these out, I will need to position these individually. Now, one of the easiest ways for you to actually get them lined up and perfect is to create a mat whereby they would sit within that mat area. Now, you can use things like your masking tape or your transfer tape to keep everything in position, but I like using an offset layer. Now, the offset layer is accessed in a couple of different ways. The one with the most control is the one which is the star down the right hand side, and when you click on there, it will actually give you the ability to change the distance of your offset. If you just right click, then I think it just which you can do, you can right click and you can offset there, but it will just remember what the settings were the last time you used it, I think. So click on offset. Now the offset can be on the outside or on the inside, but because we're creating mats and layers, we're going bigger, which is offset. So when you click on offset, you'll notice that you've kind of got these lines that have appeared around the outside. Now, this is the distance. So at the moment, it's nearly 1 centimetre away from the original centre point. So you can slide that and slide it out, in and out to whatever you want. And that's just personal preference with regards to that. But if I leave that like so, and I move the letters out the way, you can see it's created another layer based on the layer that we brought in, or the letters, should I say, that we created. So I can cut those out as individual letters. These will cut out as potentially 3 pieces. The I, the wood, I think the PICU are joined together. And you can see that when you actually zoom in a little bit closer. So yeah, you can see that these are separate. Now, if you are a bit of a lazy crafter, like myself, so let's just back up a little bit to where we've got the offset. What you can do is make sure that your offset is going to incorporate, overlap a bit more, should I say. Why is it not? I don't think it's allowing me to do that. Okay, so let's take away the offset layer. Go back. No, that's not the offset layer. It's the other one I wanted. So let's get rid of those bits, and we'll put a new offset in, and I'll show you what I mean, because at the moment we've got different pieces there. So again, that can make it a little bit tricky with regards to, not tricky, but just a bit of a faff. So we've got our letters now. So if I do an offset, I think it's something like 2.7, wasn't it? So if I make that, and I can increase it just by using the little arrows, and as I increase it, if we zoom in, you'll be able to see, you will see how it will automatically start becoming one piece, as you can see there. So and that's one way of kind of making it a little bit easier on yourself when it comes to kind of creating those offset layers. So oops, double clicked it, so I've got all the nodes there. So now I know it's all going to kind of connect together, which means that when I take away the letters, I've only got 2 pieces. So I've got the I and the wood, which are joined together, and the PICU. Now I'm going to change those to another colour, again using that fill, so we can start to see how it's coming together. I'm going to use a purple for that. So when I bring the I wood PICU, so the I wood, I've done that on a sticky glitter card, so that will sit on top of the purple. But I actually wanted to add another layer, which I've done in the silver glitter card, and you can do that on the other layer that you've done underneath. So again, I'm going to select both of those, and I'm going to go into the offset again, and I'm going to click on the offset, and again I can make it to whatever size I like, and again I can kind of zoom it out so as I can make sure that they overlap, and then that way when I step away from it, I can see that I've got this time one big piece. So you can see how it all kind of comes together, and now we'll just cut them out as separate pieces. So there you go, I would pick you. So that's what we've got next. So I'm going to head over to the demo area and just kind of stick that together and put that in my card. Oh, no, actually, I won't. I'm fibbing. Because what I need to do is, do you remember we measured it? Oh, it's okay, actually, the way that this one is done. So I didn't want it to be any bigger than 13 centimetres across. So when I select everything, it will give me the largest size, and it's about 12.5 centimetres. So that's not too bad. So I know that that will sit quite nicely on the inside of my card. So if I, whoops, which one is it? It's that one, isn't it? That's the inside of my card. So I can kind of eyeball it, and I know that it's going to sit okay there. And again, I just need to make sure that it's not too high to get to the halfway point, which it isn't. So heading over to the demo area, I've got those bits in here as well. So I've got my glittery layer, which was the largest layer. I've already started putting some of it together. So I've got my eye wood there, and then I've got the, now this is where you need to keep an eye on the shape, because sometimes it's not obvious where the pieces go, and especially if they kind of flip over. So I know that's going to sit somewhere along the lines like that. So again, just get a little bit of glue on there, and I'll show you a way of adding your letters so as that they're kind of positioned easily as well. So put that there and just basically eyeball it like so, and then again with the other. And you just have to be careful, because with glitter cardstock, because it's coated, it needs a little while just to kind of make contact and grab what you're attaching to it. So yeah, just give it a few moments. Sometimes turn it over and press it down just to make sure that it's stuck on there good and proper. So move those just up there for a minute. And this is the font that I used. And I cut it out of my vinyl. I've taken away the waste area, so I've weeded it. And what I've got is I've got some transfer paper. Transfer paper is really useful for you to actually use to transfer it over, so to transfer your letters and things. Sorry, I got distracted then reading Faith's comment. Oh yes, of course, I welded them together, didn't I? Or resized, or I did something. So yeah, that's why it wouldn't show the font. Good, exactly. Forgot about that. So, yeah, transfer tape. You can get this from a variety of different places. Quite often it will be on a roll. Variety of different companies do it. Sometimes they'll do it on A4 sheets and things like that, or 12 by 12 sheets. Quite often it will have like a grid on there, and that's useful if you have got letters, because it means you can kind of line the letters up and then stick them onto the transfer tape, because the transfer tape is sticky. So you just have to be careful that it doesn't go onto anything else that you don't want to pick up. And also, because it can be so sticky, sometimes it's difficult to actually get the stickers off. Now, I've used this one a few times, and yeah, it's kind of getting used to the strength of it, really. So, and also, if you've cut too much into your letters and you've actually cut away part of the backing as well. So that's the other thing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've got glitter vinyl as well, and it is actually like it's encapsulated, but it's not like a shiny vinyl. So again, it's a bit tricky for it to pick up. But basically, what you can do is you can use that to pick up the shapes and then transfer them over. But as I say, this one's a bit of a tricky one because of the nature of the glitter. But let's persevere, see if I can do it. Since I'm talking about it, it'd be good to actually see the effect. You kind of use different techniques that you gather over the years. Okay, but yeah, sometimes it's because I've used this transfer tape a few times, it's not quite as sticky as it was the first time I used it. Oh, there you go, one of the letters has come off on my fingers, but not to worry. I'm not going to worry too much about that. But then what you would do is, if you imagine that all of the letters have been picked up at the same time, it means that you can position them where you need them to go. You place it down, so you basically just eyeball it, see where they need to go, and then give it a good rub, and then that will transfer them onto where you need them to go. So you peel that back, and basically it's kind of piggyback them across. But the nature of the glitter vinyl that I'm using, well, it's not, it's kind of self-adhesive glitter, not vinyl as such. It just means that it's quite gritty, so it didn't attach to it. So there you go. So I would, and then we've got Pick You. We'll give it another go with the Pick You. I don't think it will transfer over, but perhaps I wasn't firm enough. Give it a good, oops. Sometimes it can grab that much, it can be really tricky to actually get it off. But whether that will work, who knows? Give it a go. Are you behaving? No. Probably not. And also you've got to be careful because sometimes you can damage the letters. So that has more or less worked. Okay. Oh no, it's come off on my letters there. I think I'll give up on that one and just position them. Sometimes it's just as quick to position them, isn't it? So pick. There you go. If you've got little tiny letters, then sometimes it might be easy to do it with the transfer tape. But I'll get myself in a bit of a pickle with it, to be honest. I tend to only use it with the it's kind of like the more plasticky type vinyl. Does that make sense? The sort of stuff that you use to go on like vehicles and stuff like that. The glittery stuff, then yeah, not so much. But it is very cold in here as well, so that could have an effect on it. So very quickly doing these bits, and then I'll go on and show you how to do the front of the card. So stick that there. Doing a bit of proper crafting because it's difficult to know what people want, because when I've done some of the Facebook lives before, some people just want to know about the software and learning techniques, but then other people do like to actually see things made and put together. So it'd be interesting to know which you prefer, because I'm happy to do either really, but sometimes when we've done them in the past, it's been more about the software and not necessarily about an actual project. So that's why we've thought that this year what I'll try and do is make it so as we're actually making something and learning something in the process. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. Not sure that's the right way around, but there you go. So I would pick you, and then those are going to go in the middle there. Whoops. Like so. Put that in, and then we'll go back and we will create the topper. And I'll show you the topper first, because if you know how to do it yourself, you might not want to stop and watch, and I don't want to hold you up if you've got other things to do this evening. I've got no idea what time it is actually. I'm on my onio this evening, so I haven't got anybody poking their head around the door asking how long I'll be because dinner's ready. So there we go. I would pick you. So there you go. That's the centre of our card, all fitting neatly within a 6x6 card. Or well, it's actually 5.5 inches, this one, so it'll fit within a standard envelope, which is nice and easy. So the topper, this is what we're going to be creating next. Now I've already shown you how to do the flowers, so we're not going to worry about the flowers. See what I mean about the stickers not sticking? I think in the process I've been chatting, I've lost an E somewhere. Oh, there it is. Stuck it down over there. So yeah, I think it's to do with the cold in here. I need to figure that out, but not to worry. Let's put that back in place there. There you go. Okay, so the topper, and the topper is made up in a similar sort of way to what we were talking about with the fonts and things, but it's using some of the kind of following a path, it's called following a path, so as it kind of attaches to the circle on the front there. So I'm going to show you how to do that next. So if you want to stay and join, follow me or watch or whatever you want to do, that's what I'm going to do next. So yeah, I'm going to hop over to the computer. Well, not hop, I will walk because I might knock the cameras all over if I do a bit of hopping. So let's get over to the computer and then work on the front of the card. So where am I? What have we got going on here? Only shows the name if you haven't welded them together. Oh yes, good. I need all types of demos, but it's great to see something being made. Okay, thank you, Bridget. That's good feedback. I think it probably will be a project based. It's just I need to get myself organised. And again, if there are tools that you want to know a little bit more about, then yeah, let me know what it is you need to know, and I'll try and incorporate those at the same time. We're trying to keep in line. Oh, actually, let's have a little look at you. Show that I'm still here. Trying to keep it in line with the blog that's running on CraftStore Direct. So it's very seasonal. So at the moment, obviously we're doing like a Mother's Day card, but the techniques and what we're learning doesn't have to relate to a Mother's Day card. It's always a bit of a tricky one to know. But over on the blog, that's kind of the theme of the month. And that's what we'll be doing with the projects that we're doing in the Facebook Live. So next month it will be a brother scan and cut project, and it will be along the theme of what's happening over on the blog for CraftStore Direct. And it's always worth checking out that blog because some really good projects on there. Anyway, back to the computer. So this is what I'm going to be creating next. And this is made up of some letters. So if mums were, and like flowers. So it's making those. The flowers, we're not going to cover the flowers because we know how they work. And then we've got a mat that we kind of learned how to create just a few moments ago. So let's get these bits out of the way to start with. Move that out there. And we're going to concentrate on the letters first. And the mat, they'll both kind of come together, to be fair. So first thing that we're going to do, oh sorry, moving around the screen. First thing I'm going to do is, because I know that I want it to be circular, so I'm going to bring myself in a circle to start with. So I'm going to have my circle, and again, you're making this sized to fit your project, so you just kind of be mindful of that when you're creating with this. So the circle is kind of going to be the basic shape for the letters to follow. So I'm just going to move that down just a tad at the moment. And I'm going to need two of those because when we're creating the letters, actually no, I'll just do it with one because I don't need two. So no, I can get away with the one. Right, so I'm going to go back to fonts. Now this font that I've got here, it's actually one that I downloaded a while back, and it's called AB Funky, I think it is, if I remember right. Oh, Abstract. Abstract Groovy. So quite a nice font. So I'm just going to type in there oh, hold on. Try again. Select it. Abstract Groovy. There we go. And come back down to here. So if mums were, okay, so that's going to be our top line. Now already it's a little bit too big, but it's not to worry. We can resize that in a moment. Also as well, this particular font has got little tiny dots in there, which I don't necessarily want, but I'll take those out at a later stage, because if I try to take those out now, I will have to release the compound path, and then that can play tricks when you actually come to start working with the font. So I always do that as a very last stage. So that's something that we'll look at in a few moments. So I'm going to resize a little bit, and I've resized it, but if I double click it, it's still got that green box around it, so it is still a situation where it is an active font. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate that because I need it to be exactly the same size when it comes to creating the other words. So we'll just put that over there for the time being. Now let's make this circle a little bit bigger, just so as I know that to make sure that they'll fit. So when you double click anything that's been created using your fonts, you'll get a green box around it, and this means it's now active, and that means you can edit it as well, so you can add extra bits in or take bits out and things like that, or, as is usually my case, spell it correctly. You've also got this little cross. Let me just zoom in so as you can see that, and this little cross here, oh, doesn't make the cross any bigger. That's not very helpful, is it? But this little cross that you've got here, that will help your design follow a path. So when you hold on to that, so I'm clicking on that and dragging the letters around, I can actually take that little cross that we've got in the circle there and pop it over another shape. And you can see what happens. The shape of the letters follow the path of whatever shape you attach it to, which is brilliant. So it means that they are now following that design, which is great. And then again, if I bring the other one in, then I can get that one to follow the other side of it. So let me just move these out of the way so we've got a bit more space to work with. Now, as you can see at the moment, it's a bit lopsided, so I'm just going to double click on the font there, and I can basically just move it using that round, so I can kind of eyeball it and get it that I'm happy with it. Again, you'll notice that the line is there, the blue snap line is there. Oh, Faith, I wish I'd known this yesterday. Oh, bless you. Sorry. So now it's following the path. Okay. Now, what I do need to do is do the letters that are going to follow the path on the inside. So I'm going to bring that back in, and I know it's exactly the same font because I duplicated it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it back so as I can actually edit the words. So it needs to say like flowers. So if mums were like flowers. Whoops. See what I mean about editing the letters when you spell it wrong? So again, I'm going to press on the little line, and I can basically get it to follow the inside or the outside. So now it's following the inside, but it's not sitting at the right area. So I can use this little slider that we've got here to actually take it outside of the circle, like so. So now you can see how it's sitting like the others were. Okay. So if I take these out of the way, now if I was to actually send this to the machine, I've not got my machine hooked up, so you can see all it's going to do is actually cut out the letters at this stage. So that's fine. That's what we want it to do. So we can move that out of the way, and it can cut those letters out if we wanted to. What I can also do at this stage is get rid of the little circles that are in there, because I don't want those. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back into the middle, and I'm just going to keep those like so, right click, or select that part should I say, and then make that into a compound path. No, I'm not, because it's brought the circle in. I'm going to right click it and convert it to a path. Now, is it taken? Yes, it's taken it separately, so that's fine. So that's keeping them separate, and then it would be the same. And then basically what I can do is I can go into the letters, and then I can basically take out, so if I release compound path, then what will happen, hold on, no, I've done it the wrong way around. Let's go back, sorry. Go back, go back, go back, go back. Okay. So what I need to do is click on the letters, right click and make compound path. And then basically I can take those letters away, and then when I go right the way in, I can right click and release the compound path, and it will give you all the individual pieces. So I can basically work my way through now and get rid of the little holes that are in the letters. Okay. Now it will mean that each of the letters are individual, so you just need to be careful that you don't go moving anything around. And then once you've got everything and you're happy with everything, let's just get rid of that. I can basically select everything again, right click, and then make it into a compound path again. And then that way it's joined it back up again, and I can go off and cut those letters out. So you do the same with the bottom piece as well. But what I should have done before I did any of that, and I got it back so it was all one piece. So I'm just pressing the undo button at this point, taking it back a little bit. So when it was all joined together, oh no, the ones at the bottom aren't joined together. So basically when it's in position before I started playing with the compound path, there we go. Oh, hold on. Pressed undo too many times. Trigger happy. Right, so let's bring that back in. I'm not quite sure what I've done there. Right, okay, start again. It's probably just as easy. Well, hold on, no, it's back in place there. Is it playing little devils with me? Okay, so what I should have done is, at this point as well, is just duplicate it. So one of them I would take off then and then create the individual letters. So I would get that one out of the way for a moment. That one I would have just done the release the compound path and separated them up and then cut them out as individual letters. This particular one that we've got here, this is the one that is going to create our shape for our letters. See, I think that's what it was. I was dragging it around and it didn't catch up as I was dragging it. So this is what we're going to create now. So this is going to be our offset layer, so that when we actually cut out our letters, we can sit them on top like so, and we've got that area in the middle there for us to put our flowers in place. So I'm going to select everything that we've got here, and then I'm going to make that into a compound path. So that is all one piece. And then what I'm going to do is just create an offset layer. So you can offset layer again, you can do it as I said before, using these figures here, making it go larger, making it go smaller, whatever sort of size you want it to be really. Okay, so about like so. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the inner piece away, and I'm left with that outer perimeter, which is pretty much the same as that, just on a larger scale. Now again, when you look at this, you will find that you'll have little kind of nuggins dependent on how your font has behaved. So again, if you just right click that and release the compound path, you can get rid of those little bits there. So you can just click on them, hold your shift key down, click on any of those that you're wanting to get rid of, like so, and then just press delete and then they'll go. So you'll just have that outer parameter. So then basically what will happen is, let's fill that in with purple, because that's I think what I've done on mine. And then basically your letters will come and sit. Now those are sitting at the back, they've disappeared behind there, so that's where I can bring it to the front. There you go, and it sits on the top. Obviously it's kind of resized as I've been playing around with it, but yeah, basically get it to the right sizing that you had before. And then one will cut out on the other. Oops. And then they would just, you position those, but these would be individual letters anyway, so you can kind of position where you need to go. So the top and bottom of it is that when it all comes together, so if I just reopen that, so I'm not going to save that, don't save that. And I'm going to just reopen it, file, open recent, that's that one. So then basically you will have your letters, individual letters, you'll have your mat, and you'll have your area where you can put your flowers. So head back over to the demo area, and that's exactly what I've got cut out. So I actually did another offset. I only did one offset when I was just showing you, but you'll know how to do that. So that will basically sit like so. And then that has been cut out of the purple cardstock. I've done another offset layer from this particular one to create the silver mat. So that will sit on top of there like so. Because of the way that my transfer tape is behaving, I'll give it a go, because I'm not one to give in. I haven't even got any sticky tape handy, because sometimes you can get away with using sticky tape. I can't see any masking tape anywhere, but I don't think they're going to pick up, because my transfer tape isn't very sticky, and I'm not going to sit there doing the individuals. But yeah, basically what you would do is pick them up individually if it's sticky or however, and transfer them onto there. So you'd have, if mum's were like flowers, they'd sit in those gaps, and then you just put a selection of different flowers in there. What I actually did with the flowers is I put some flowers that were sitting flat. I kind of did like a triangle, that rule of 3. So a triangle of 3 sitting flat, and then the other ones I kind of doubled up on some of them. So I took where I'd got a larger flower. Have I used all the larger ones? There you go. So that's a larger flower there. So where I've got a larger flower, oops, I basically took a smaller flower, oh, pulled the petal off, and just curved them. Oh, there you go, that one I'll do. So the heat, this is actually cardstock, the CraftStore glitter cardstock. It's kind of a midway between a cardstock and a paper, which is nice when you're working with your silhouette. And then just take another one, and again the smaller ones, you just give it heat to your fingers and your nails, give it a little bit of a curl, and then stick one on top of the other. do them slightly offset, so as you've got a nice full flower. And then again, rule of 3 in the opposite triangle. So that's a triangle with the point going down, that's a triangle point going up, and then just sit those in the middle, and then that creates your topper. And then yeah, just arrange them however you want to arrange them. I've got an abundance of flowers. Put my adhesive back in before I forget, because if I go out tonight and I haven't put that in, I'm not going to be able to use that tomorrow. Oh gosh, could do with a new set of eyeballs. So there we go, showing you how you can create your pop-up card and then play around with your welding of your letters and stuff like that. So that is it really for this week, I suppose. This month, should I say. Oh gosh, hold on, tripping over my microphone. So yeah, have a quick look just to see if there's anything that anybody's asked and I've not mentioned. No, nothing there, no questions. Oh, gone into an hour and a half. Well, I can waffle on, can't I, when I get going? So hopefully that is something that you found of use to you. Just keeping an eye on my sorry about that, not quite sure what happened then. So yeah, so that will be it. I can't remember the exact date of the next demo. Let me have a quick look. Oh, you're welcome, Bridget, and you too, Jean. Thank you for taking the time and trouble to join me, because I never know if anybody's going to turn up. Could just be me on my own. Could happen. Where am I? It is the 6th of April. That's the next one. And I've actually made a note. This is me being organised. It is going to be with the scan and cut, and we're going to make a bunny gift box. That's right, I remember now. A few little eggs to go in. So, yeah, when's Easter actually? Oh yeah, we are a bit ahead. I suddenly thought then, has Easter been and gone at that point? But no, it hasn't. Easter Monday is the weekend after. So we're making them just ahead of the Easter weekend. But it is something that you could be creating anyway. So yeah, you can be making it for all sorts of different bits and pieces. So yeah, it's one of those situations that... Again, sorry. Pressing all the buttons, do apologise. So yeah, that's it. Any more questions? Let's have a quick look just before I say my goodbyes. No, I think that's it. So on that score, I will say good evening to you. Thank you for joining me. It's been good fun. And yeah, same time on the 6th of April. So yeah, that'll be a Thursday as well, I believe. So I will see you then. Bye for now then.